Good afternoon, everyone. This is Prescott City Council voting meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 27th, 2022. I want to welcome a big crowd in the chambers, so I'm pleased to see so many people that are very interested in what's happening in our city. So welcome. Thanks for being here. So introductions and announcements, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Prescott continues to host public meetings to share information about the proposed Airport Vicinity Overlay District, also called the AVO. The main purpose of the AVO is to enhance public safety around the airport by requiring non-residential uses in the impact zones. Also, it will require proper notification to home buyers to decrease noise complaints. You may arrive anytime during the allowed time period. The final open house for the Airport Overlay District will be Wednesday, October 5th from 3 to 5 p.m. at the terminal. This will not be a formal presentation, but it provides opportunities to speak one-on-one with staff members who can answer your questions. After this final open house is held, the Planning and Zoning Commission will continue a public hearing on Thursday, October 13th at 9 a.m. in the City Council chambers at 201 South Cortez. Secondly, fall is here. We are having an exciting weekend of events coming up. Number one, enjoy Fall Fest in the park this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, on the Yavapai County Courthouse Plaza. Browse art and unique handcrafted goods from dozens of local vendors, eat delicious food, and visit with the Prescott regulators and their shady ladies. And this weekend, you can go to the 15th annual Prescott Area Artist Studio Tour at locations around Prescott. This is a free 3-day event. Visit Studio Tour website for more information. And also, it's Oktoberfest weekend, and this year there's an Oktoberfest at the Social Dance Club, formerly Los Pinos, located on White Spar Road. As you all know, it used to be the old Pinecone Inn. So it starts Saturday, October 1st from 5 to 8 p.m. So please enjoy German beer. Bring your favorite German dish to share for potluck. Put on your dirndls and lederhosen and dance the polka to the Red Baron Band. Full cash bar and cash cover charge $10 each or $15 a couple. And come and join us on the beautiful wooden dance floor. Last but not least, check out the fun things to do at the Adult Center. There's something for everyone: yoga, line dancing, cribbage, Tai Chi, bridge, Zumba, Pilates, cooking classes, more dance, and bingo. Go to adultcenter.org for more info. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll now have an invocation from Rich Stoffen from the Pine Rock camp, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Shishka.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you bow your heads with me, please? Father, what a joy it is to be here today. We thank you for this great group of people that are here, and as the Mayor already said, we just appreciate that there are people here that have such great interest. We pray for their leadership. We pray, Lord, that they would not just have knowledge, but they would have wisdom in all the decisions that they make. It is such a great time to live in the town of Prescott, and we're so honored to do that. We also pray, Lord, that you would bless this town, bless this council, that we might be a blessing to others and not hoard it for ourselves. Thank you again for your presence in this place. We ask this in your name. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Gee, we don't have any proclamations today.
I got them all out of the way last
So
time.
for those of you who are expecting it, I apologize. No proclamations today. We'll start with roll call, please.
Mayor Good,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rusi,
Here.
Councilwoman Cantelmi. Here. Councilman Montoya,
Here.
Councilman Moore.
Here.
Councilman Sischka,
Here.
and Councilman Tenney.
Yes.
All are present.
Very good. Now we'll move forward with an open call to the public.
The City of Prescott welcomes public engagement, and residents may comment and address council regarding matters that are not included on the posted agenda during the open call to the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a green speaker card and submit it to me prior to the start of the meeting. As a reminder, speakers are limited to 4 minutes, and the call to the public will be limited to 40 minutes in total. Please note, pursuant to ARS Section 38-431.01H, members of the council may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda, and therefore interaction will be limited. I noticed that all of the public comment cards that I have are for the same thing, so I would also encourage everyone to keep their comments kind of concise and not repetitive. And with that, we'll have the first speaker is Eric Mueller.
Well, can you hear me? Well, thank you very much for having me. The City of Prescott wants to build apartment complexes for the masses. This initiative would have a significant change to our fine city. Such a change would require more infrastructure, such as doctors, hospitals, traveling in and out of downtown. When a city starts building larger complexes, they can't stop. One after another, and so on. There would be a significant change in the demographics of our community. Apartment complexes often bring differing opinions, some of those opinions contrary to the values that Prescott holds so valuable. I fear that Prescott can potentially be another Maricopa County, and that's something I would hate to have to see. I realize we need some amenities, such we have In-N-Out Burgers, Costco, McDonald's. Well, one of the things we're not going to see is a McDonald's built right in front of the courthouse. Let our neighboring cities be those who build apartments if they so desire. I strongly recommend against this initiative as Prescott's going down a slippery slope. Large apartment complexes bring more traffic, congestion, consumption of our precious resources. Water is a good example of that. Water is allocated in different areas, so therefore there's going to be limitations and reallocations, meaning that where we would be building in other areas, more open areas, is going to be more difficult to do. It is also an undesirable housing for doctors, the thing that we need the very, very most. Doctors are looking to buy houses, and that's something we need more than anything else, and there's going to be a shortage. Thank you very much for your time.
Jim Gehring.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Jim Gehring, and my wife and I live in Prescott Lakes. The reason I'm here today is we keep having developers show up at the doorstep of Prescott Lakes thinking that they can do things in terms of development and densities that are not permitted by the agreement we have. Which agreement am I talking about? I'm talking about the restated and amendment development agreement that was approved by the City Council, signed by the mayor, city clerk, and city attorney, 6 developers, the Prescott Lakes Community Association, and the Prescott Lakes Golf Club in late September 2004. So development in Prescott Lakes is controlled by that development agreement and not by city zoning. City zoning is simply there to allow the development that is shown in the development agreement and its many exhibits, most especially the Prescott Lakes Master Plan. That development agreement is still in force. We once heard from city staff that it was not, but it is. And for instance, the Prescott Lakes Community Association is obligated to maintain landscaping along the rights-of-way of public streets, including Smoke Tree, Blooming Hills, and Prescott Lakes Parkway until the year 2100 by that agreement. So how are density and water service units controlled within Prescott Lakes, presuming you comply with the agreement? They're controlled by Exhibit E3 of the agreement. It's the accounting of Arizona Department of Water Resource approved units, and its title is the Density Reconciliation Schedule. So E3 spreads density in exact, precise numbers between each specific development area within Prescott Lakes as it existed in 2004. Of course, those same boundaries still exist, but many subdivisions have occurred, and it becomes confusing to retrace what those density units, which precise areas they go to. For instance, how many of you on the council know the boundaries of Peaks 1 or Peaks 2? I'm talking about both those today. So only 2,718 density units in Prescott Lakes have water services associated with them, awarded by the Department of Water Resources. Yes, E3 talks about another 786 density units, but those are not, they do not have water. No water was allocated to them. They're not shown on the master plan. Their intent was in case the developers, after 2004, annex more property to Prescott Lakes. Now, how are water services transferred, or density for that matter, would you think? Well, let me read this. From Section 2.1 of our agreement, all rights to the use and enjoyment of unused density and density transfers shall be reserved exclusively to the developer parties. The city cannot transfer density or water services within Prescott Lakes. Only the developer parties or their assigns in writing. Well, what about the water services? Because that just talked about density. But Section 3.11 of our agreement says that the city further acknowledges, you further acknowledge, that 2,718 units of water service to be provided by the city,
Please conclude, Mr. Gehring.
all right, they are transferable within Prescott Lakes as an adjunct to density transfer. So no one but the developer parties can transfer water or density within Prescott Lakes. Thank you.
Jim Jones.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council persons. My name's Jim Joannes, Prescott Lakes since 2008. We're here discussing with you today a proposed development of 420 units, apartment units, at the corner of Prescott Lakes Parkway and 89A. Mr. Gehring spoke with respect to the issue of water. We always have two issues here. One is water. The other are building restrictions. About 10 months ago, we were before the council, same situation of whether or not a project, which was called the Dr. Ascari Lafferty project, should get water rights. There was a debate by the city and the Prescott Lakes Community Association as to whether or not water was available. With this 420 units that is being proposed, again, the same issues. Is there water available? The Prescott Lakes Community Association says no, that parcel falls well short of the number of units needed, 420. There is also going to be the issue of of height restrictions on buildings. The Prescott Lakes Community Association has restrictions on building for commercial, residential, and multifamily. The general restriction is 2 stories in height, 2 stories and 35 feet in height. The developer wishes to put up 2 large apartment buildings of, I'd say, approximately 170 units per building, 4 stories in height. And of course, the 4 stories will greatly exceed the 35-foot restriction. So why is that a concern? Well, we have a development agreement signed in 2004 by the city and Prescott Lakes Community Association. We have restrictions in place by the Prescott Lakes community of building and water, 2004. We have a new owner as of December 2020 who wants to come in and put in this project. That developer took the property subject to those water and building restrictions. Those water and building restrictions are in addition to all of the city requirements, all of the, building restrictions within the city. And what I hear a lot from being at previous meetings is the city has to be very concerned because, one, we have our, I always forget the name, Private Property Protection Act, Title 12, Section 1134 of the code, which says if we do anything to prevent a developer from building, we could be sued. Well, that statute was in 2006. Our agreement is in 2004. The restrictions, the building and water restrictions, have been there since 2004. The statute is not retroactive to some previous date before 2006. So I don't think, number one, you're being worried about.
Mr. Johanna,
Yep.
please conclude.
Okay. Number one, you don't have to be worried about Section 121134. Number two, the city is bound, just like Prescott Lakes is, and the new owner, to the restrictions on building and water. We would like to have a meeting with the city to get together to see if we can solve the building restrictions and the water restrictions. Good, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Robert Sisley.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Sisley. I'm the president of the board of directors for the Prescott Lakes Community Association, and we are a signature to the 2004 development agreement. So Mr. Gehring and Mr. Johannes has pretty much covered the things that I could go over, and obviously I'm not going to repeat them because the city clerk doesn't want me to do that. So I want to just bring up some things about the development agreement. I've been on the board for 8 years, and in no time during those 8 years has the Community Association ever been approached about discussing the development agreement and either making modifications or significant deviations to it. The Lafferty-Ascari project was originally supposed to be 9, per the master plan, 9 office buildings, and it was being proposed to be 224 apartment buildings. To me, that's a significant deviation from the master plan and would require the agreement of all the signatories from that development agreement. We were never approached. So that's kind of gone by the wayside. Mr. Lafferty's fell out of escrow, but my understanding is that Dr. Ascari does want to develop that. I don't know what he's going to finally end up doing, but we also have this 224 unit apartments that are a concern. I had the opportunity to speak with the mayor a couple weekends ago, and what I'd like to propose for consideration is that an ad hoc committee be created from the appropriate development or the departments within the city, the Prescott Lakes Commercial Association, the Prescott Lakes Community Association, and possibly a representative from that represents the residents to go over the development agreement and see if we can come to some. We know that these properties are going to get developed, but in what way and how is that going to impact the residents? We're obligated. We do the landscaping. We do the other things that we're supposed to do, the trails and whatnot, and we would hope that the city would live up to enforcing that development agreement. I was very happy to see the mayor had an interest in it, and I know some other council members are as well. I'm concerned that city staff is inappropriately or mistakenly telling developers, hey, you got the water, yeah, it's within the master plan, yep, it's no problem. We don't see it that way. So we think that sitting down and maybe going over this with the city attorney, who I know hasn't had an opportunity to really review the development agreement, I think it's a step in the right direction, and let's address this before it actually comes before the council. So thank you very much.
Randall Soley.
Good afternoon, council. Thanks for hearing my complaints. I live at 1516 Varsity Drive, ground zero, above the proposed apartment buildings. None of the council, I don't imagine, know the sound amplifications that we put up with on top of that hill. If those apartments go in, my bedroom faces right above them. So does my deck. So that means I'm going to smell what they're cooking for dinner. I'm going to hear them staying up late at night, whatever reasons, the noise. And if you haven't witnessed the wind up there, it sweeps right up that hill. So it's going to be a major impact. My wife is asthmatic. She's going to be breathing that construction air quality. And I don't see where you can't put apartment buildings in a better area that won't impact all these good citizens and homeowners to accommodate developers and renters. Thanks for hearing my complaint.
Let's keep the applause to a minimum so there's time for as many people to address the council as possible. Thank you.
That's all we have, Mayor.
All right, never. Well, that worked pretty good, didn't it? Well, thank you all for coming. We've heard your concerns, and as Mr. Sisley mentioned, I have talked to a number of people in the community, and we are intending to put together a meeting so we can review those development agreements and the master plan, and hopefully have a meeting of minds about exactly what and how much and where can be developed in the future. So thank you all for coming. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda at this point. So does anyone on the council want to pull any items from consent?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item H, the last item.
Okay, item H. Anyone else? All right, we'll pull item 7H off consent, so I'll entertain a motion for the remaining items.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 7A through 7G.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem, can you vote, please?
Oh, sorry.
Passes 7-0.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, you wanted to pull 7H from consideration?
Yes, this was something that was on the consent agenda, and I just wanted to bring it to the public's attention that we have been working very diligently with the Tri-City College middle school to come to a resolution. This property involved the airport and an error that was made in mapping, which through no fault of the city or the airport, it was caught by the airport. And we have been negotiating with the middle school to come to a resolution. And I'm happy to say that it looks like we are finally coming to a resolution that will make everyone happy, and hopefully going forward, we won't be having any more of these mistakes. Thank you.
Councilman Montoya?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, I know Chelsea Walton with the city has been working with other parties on this. We had kind of discussed maybe you would say whether or not we're good to go on this, if this is a final and best offer.
Yeah, so I was able, hi, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Chelsea Walton, City Manager's Office. I was able to speak with Dr. Mary Ellen Halverson, who's actually here in attendance today. And I don't know, Mary Ellen, if you wanted to speak to anything, but she did see the last iteration of the added language for the fire lane that was emailed out, and she said we're good to go.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, I would just like to ask our city manager to make a few comments.
Well, I appreciate Mary Ellen and the rest of the team being as forthright and reasonable with this whole thing. I know it hasn't been joyous for you guys. I don't know that it's been joyous for us either, but we all realized that there was a necessity to reach a reasonable agreement, and I think we've done that. So thank you.
All right, any other comments or concerns? I'll entertain a motion on this item then.
I move to approve item 7H on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right. Moving on to the consent ordinance.
Adoption of resolution number 2022-1812, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing the sale of real property to Delaware Bay Properties LLC, rescinding prior city of Prescott ordinance number 2022-1795 due to an error in the purchasing party's legal name, and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said sale.
So it's my understanding that this is purely a name change from a previously approved agreement, where the previously approved agreement was referencing the Founding Fathers Collective, and now we have a parent company that has changed their name to Delaware Bay Properties LLC. So this is simply a restatement of a previous agreement. Any comments or concerns? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of consent ordinance 8A.
Second.
I don't think you were recognized. Councilman Tenney.
Sorry.
Hadn't asked to be recognized.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Okay. All right, we go to the regular agenda, item 9A.
Adoption of ordinance number 2022-1814, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Arizona, approving the form and authorizing the execution and delivery of a loan agreement with the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority of Arizona from its Drinking Water Revolving Fund program, delegating the determination of certain matters relating thereto to the Budget and Finance Director of the city, providing for the transfer of certain monies and making certain covenants and agreements with respect thereto, authorizing the taking of all other actions necessary to the consummation of the transaction contemplated by such loan agreement and this ordinance, and declaring an emergency.
Well, thank you, City Clerk. You're getting better all the time. I'm telling you.
That was a one-breather.
Yes, thanks, Sarah. And Mayor Mark Woodfell, Budget and Finance Director for the City of Prescott. This is the acceptance of the loan Council authorized us to approve or to apply for back in April. This is the final loan for the intermediate pump station. If Council remember, the first loan was approved and closed back in 2019 August. It was for $25 million. It had a 1.59 interest rate, and it was a 30-year term. And again, every now and then you catch the market in the right place. Unfortunately, that's not happening with this loan. This loan, again, we applied for it in April. It was awarded by the board to us in June. However, because of wording that had to come from the EPA for the final loan documents, because part of this loan is forgiven principal 1.5, the closing got deferred. And this ordinance has an emergency clause so we can proceed with the closing immediately. The goal is to have it closed by October 21st. The interest rate will be set at the time of closing. The documents that were in your packet showed a 3.6% interest rate for a 30-year term. If the loan closed today, the interest rate would be closer to 3.1. The interest rate will actually be the interest rate at that date. We will pay 80% of the AAA municipal 30-year bond rate, which is the way WIFA works. And again, WIFA has been a great partner for the city. We get lower interest rates just because of their better rating. We're AA, they're AAA, so we get that AAA rating. On top of that, EPA funding is funneled through these loan pools in the different states, so they subsidize our interest cost. This one will be subsidized by 20%, so we will only pay 80% of that market interest rate. Over the years, we've we've used about $140 million worth of WIFA loans for the wastewater and drinking water systems. We currently have an outstanding balance on those of $83 million. This new $34 million loan will bring our outstanding balance up to $115. Again, it had the 1.5 forgiven principal, which happens on the last payment of the bond at the end of the bond, as well as overall over the last 10 years. Over this period, we've gotten total forgiven principal from WIFA different programs of $9.6 million, which is worth noting. It helps reduce the cost of water to our citizens, which of course water bills are a part of the high cost of living here in Prescott, so it helps keep housing a little more affordable. With that, I'd be glad to go into any more detail.
Councilman Montoya.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, I just have a practical question about the interest rate. When you said the rate that's listed in our packet would be if we were to get the loan to close today.
No.
Oh, it's not?
It's not. It was a projection from WIFA.
Okay.
I looked up the rate this morning. If the loan closed today, it'd be closer to 3.1.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I was referring to. The 3.1 would be what we would get if it closed today.
Yeah, and it will not close until the 21st.
Yeah, and so my question, I guess, is when you said you looked it up today, I assume that includes the most recent rate increase that happened?
Again, the rate increase, of course, was you're referring to as the Federal Reserve daily interest rate. That does filter across the different interest rates. This is the 30-year end of the municipal bond curve, so it has different effects on it. So that is the bid today for 30-year municipal bonds. So it would include whatever impact that had on that end of the curve.
And so I would assume by that logic that the future Federal Reserve increases on the interest rate will obviously drive this rate up at the end in October.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Yeah. And again, there is provisions in the future, like with all the debt we do, whether WIFA debt or bond debt directly of the city or there are MPC. Municipal debt usually has a 10-year callable option, so after 10 years, the debt can be called if there is a cost savings. And again, it's hard to hit a cost savings with a WIFA because we get such a reduced interest rate. So chances are it won't be called, but if it's in the money in 10 years, I'll be back here to present it to you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I think you answered my question. I was just going to ask if we would be able to renegotiate if the rates drop, but we have to wait 10 years. Is that it?
Yeah, it has a 10-year lock. Like I said, that's standard in municipal debt. That's kind of what the market's looking for. So you could try to negotiate something less, but you'll pay a lot for it. So that's the sweet spot, if you will.
And we could pay it off early if we wanted to.
No, you can't. Not until 10 years.
Okay.
You can pay it all off in 10 years from now.
All righty.
Very good. Any other comments or concerns? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2022-1814.
Second.
Motion is second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, moving on to item 9B.
Approval of city contract number 2023-039 with Pavement Restoration, Inc. for the fiscal year 23 pavement preservation rejuvenation phase 1 project.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tim Sherwood, Public Works. Item I have for you today is our FY23 pavement preservation rejuvenation phase 1 project. The project includes areas in the northern part of Prescott in the Antelope Crossing area, as well as Walden Ranch over here, a segment of Granite Dells Parkway, Smoke Tree Lane, as well as Golden Hawk and Gail Gardner from Willow Creek Road over to Iron Springs. These are all roads that have been recently paved in the last three years or so. This project is included in our city's pavement management program. The product we're using is called Reclamite. It's an emulsion oil applied to roadways to restore surface oils. One of the first things that starts going away in a new pavement is the oils in the very top surface of the asphalt, and if it's not taken care of early on, it'll start deteriorating the oils further down into in the asphalt. So we apply this. The best way I've heard it, kind of a layman's term, is putting lotion on your hands. If you have a dry spot in your hands, you put lotion on it. It helps heal it. So like I said, we do this on roads that are in their first 3 to 5 years of service life, that are in good condition. It's cost effective, and it's a good way to extend our roadway surface life. We're going to do approximately 26 lane miles with this project, and all the roads that we do are in the higher PCI ranges. This freezes the PCI on those roads for approximately 3 years. So if a road's in the high 80s or low 90s, which most of these are, they will stay that way versus dropping a point or two over the course of this time frame.
So that's the pavement condition index?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I should know better by now. The city will use Pinal County piggyback contract as agreed upon by Pavement Restoration, Inc. in the city of Prescott. That contract expires in July 24th of 2023. Funding for the project is budgeted in FY23 and available in our streets fund. And with that, I will take any questions.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I just have a question. I was looking at the map, and it is obvious that the bulk of the work is in our newer subdivisions, Antelope Crossing, Walden Ranch, and Granite Dells Parkway. I mean, these roads can't be that old, and they're already needing...
Every one of these roads have been paved for at least 3 years.
Okay.
And they are the city's roads to maintain. And that's why I said, this product the idea is to apply it to new roads. So if we start applying this to these roads now, we're going to get longer lifespan out of the roads overall. So you will see as these subdivisions start getting into the 3 to 5 year range, especially the Walden Ranches, Antelope Meadows, Westwood, and stuff like that, that we'll go in and do this. And like I said, that will help us with the overall maintenance of the asphalt.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other comments or concerns? I'll entertain a motion for that.
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2023-039.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, moving on to item 9C.
Approval of city contract number 2023-056 with Asphalt Paving and Supply, Inc. for the Slaughterhouse Gulch Sewer Crossing Project.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tim Sherwood again, Public Works. The next item I have for you is the Slaughterhouse Gulch Sewer Crossing Project. This project will remove an existing 24-inch aerial sewer main crossing that crosses Slaughterhouse Gulch. It was built in 1980. It's right in here in the Kijidava area. This is a freestanding structure with a 24-inch trunk main that crosses it, and it's got 2 supports that are actually in the creek, and it could be susceptible to flooding. We will also remove 2 abandoned water mains and stabilize the drainage channel. We will be replacing it with a freestanding structure that will allow us to not only support the 24-inch main, but it'll provide a catwalk for maintenance purposes, and it'll be set on 2 abutments on either side of the creek, so there will be no structure within the creek itself that's susceptible to flooding. This 24-inch trunk main is the one that runs from the city all the way to from basically over by the VA up to the current wastewater treatment plant at Sundog. It has nothing to do with our centralization. This line will continue to run to Sundog. There's a lift station there that will eventually pump wastewater to the airport reclamation facility. There's 180 days in the contract from NTP. We're anticipating the middle of October pending contract award. The project was advertised in August. We received 2 bids on September 1st. Public Works is recommending the award of the bid to Asphalt Paving and Supply of Prescott Valley for $996,000, $996.96. I knew I was going to stumble on that. And our estimate for the project was $909,050. Staff has received written confirmation of the bid from Asphalt Paving Supply. Verification of license, bonding, references, and past performance of previous municipal projects has been completed and deemed satisfactory. The city's standard construction project contract will be used for this project, and funding for the project is budgeted in FY23 in our wastewater fund. And I will take any questions.
Yeah, it's interesting, at least the engineering estimate is not significantly below the low bid, so I'm hoping that some of these bids now are going to be closer to engineering than we've seen in the last couple of years.
Yes, sir. And there were two items we did an addendum for this. We actually, the staff determined that we wanted the bypass pumping to be a little bit greater than what was originally in the contract documents. So we went from 9 million gallons a day to 10 million gallons a day. The engineer's estimate wasn't updated to reflect that. And so I think the pricing that came in on the bids, that was the biggest chunk of that.
All right, that makes sense. Interesting that they'd actually bid 996.96. Is that kind of an engineering joke or something?
I will say it's a characteristic of this particular bidder.
Okay.
Well, it works.
All right. Any other questions or concerns? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2023-056.
Second.
We had a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, item 9D.
Approval of city contract number 2023-061 with Waterworks Engineers LLC for a study design concept report and alternatives analysis for the remediation of PFAS and arsenic from city potable water supplies.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is John Kiembrick. I'm one of the capital projects managers for this, so I'm typically not one of the people that you'll see up here. So if I stumble through here, please give me a little forgiveness. The Waterworks Engineering was chosen for this particular study. They have extensive experience in water treatment, water facilities, and water design. They are currently one of the consulting engineers that we're using for the water production facility in the town of Chino. So we are Chino Valley. So we are very familiar with them, and they seem to be a perfect fit for this project. So that's why we chose them, and through the scoping and review process with them, they came up with an excellent proposal. Just give you a little bit of history here, and some of it is, I don't want to be too repetitive, but back in August 26th, we did our latest release to the public about the PFAS and the testing that we have done to our water facilities here, and through that notice, we've also made some operational changes, which were outlined in that document. Those operational changes are still being done as we speak, and we've improved and increased a lot of our testing as well. And so, as part of this study, Waterworks will be doing analytical review of our testing methods, and helping us go through here and develop of possible treatment and other operational changes that we can make. The current operational changes that we're doing some blending techniques, which is the alternating some of our wells, some of the sequencing of how we produce the water. And through that, we found we've got some significant change in some of these testing results. And in fact, a lot of the testing that we're doing now, we're expanding that into the supply end. So our tanks over at the Town of Chino water production facility, we are testing those tanks as well as the individual wells, but we're also testing, looking to start testing our Zone 12 tank, which is over by the Granite Dells Estates, the subdivision just south of 89A. That'll help for us to analyze that data as well to see how this blending is working. Currently, the EPA has come out with their latest health advisory level, which is at 70 parts per trillion. It looks like, from industry standards and what we have learned throughout the last few months here, the EPA is going to be coming out with a contamination or a maximum contamination level, or a MCL, or ruling, as it's probably better said, probably in late 2023, possibly early 2024. So right now, as we look at this, we're getting ahead of the curve. And I think that's the mayor, I think that was one of you, Mayor Pro Temp, I think that was both of something that you wanted to see with that. Also with this study, we're going to be looking at arsenic. Arsenic right now is, there is a regulatory level for that. The MCL is right now at 10 parts per billion. We are operating through some of the blending and that we're doing. We're about 7.5. The goals of all of this is to look to see if we can be, if with the PFAS, as low as non-detect, or 2 point per trillion, and then down and moving the arsenic down to possibly 5 parts per billion. So with this, I think there is a significant goals and aspirations that we have for the city. The second part of this study is looking at technologies in media evaluation. And what we're looking at is different types of treatment if we go in that direction. Part of that can be granule activated carbon, ion exchange, fluorosolve, absorbent filtration, coagulation. Thank you. That's a mouthful. But as we look at a lot of these different treatments and the medias that are involved in these treatments, there isn't a one-size-fits-all. What our neighbors are doing, maybe in Prescott Valley, is not going to work well for us. And in fact, what we do in the 4 Chino wells may not be the same as we do at the airport wells. You're looking at different aquifers, different ways that we get the water with this. The other considerations that we're looking at with this is, what do we do with this medium? It's a granular medium. We need to dispose of this, to replace it. If it's a filtration, is there backwater washing? What do we do with the backwater? And then or change out the filters. So there's a lot of consideration in what we do. The city of Prescott has very clean, safe, and quite frankly, very good water. Some of these treatment techniques and other medias that we use could affect the way we disinfect our water, or the pH that's naturally in our water, and the hardness of our water. So we have to take all these into consideration when we do that. So that's what the initial part of this evaluation or the study is going to help us. So we have a clear direction coming into 2023, and then fiscal year for us, fiscal year 24. And what the hope is using this information in the study to come up with possible treatment scenarios, and then maybe even go into a design of it if we need to. So I would ask that you give this consideration. We've got funding for this project is already in the water fund, and with the total amount of $96,090. And with that, I'm done with my presentation.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, John. I just have a few questions. One concern I have is maybe the engineer could look at how these different mediation techniques will affect the taste of the water, because I think that's very important to the community.
Well, I think that's part of what was going through with that as well, with the pH and the hardness of the water. And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Those are things that people take for granted.
And then my other comment is, will the engineer be giving us any cost estimates as to?
Yes, they'll be doing cost estimates, and I apologize, I forgot to give you one of the main focuses here. The report, what we're ended up doing, what we're doing is, once we get this report, we're looking to get the report back from the engineer at the end of the calendar year. Waterworks will be doing a presentation for the city council. We're looking to do that probably the second meeting of in January of 2023. So give us a little time to go through that. And I apologize, that was a major part of this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Shishka.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Can anyone even measure down to 0.004 parts per trillion?
It seems a daunting task, and yes, and yes, there are testing procedures through the EPA, which our labs that we use, which is Legend, do follow. Some of that, it seems to be just as a just looking at this, like how can we measure something so small when you're talking about granulars inside of something of the size of Lake Watson? But they can measure that, and what we're trying to do is, what they're trying to do is go through here and just make sure that we get down something that a detectable level, somewhere around 2 parts per trillion. It gets a little bit lower than that, it becomes non-detect. Anything over that, the tests have been, the way they've been going, they've been doing these things, have been quite effective and quite reliable.
Well, just to give folks an idea of what this looks like, Lake Powell, when it's full, has 26,000 acre-feet of water. And this is like pouring a 4-ounce beer into that amount. So, we're really caught between a rock and a hard place. And how do we mitigate anywhere close to that?
You are correct. Municipal water systems are probably the most regulated systems, in the United States, and things that we look at. Even the parts, even the arsenic is difficult to that. But the intent is to try to get it as close as we can with this thing and mitigate it. That's why we want to look at all these options and go through here before we make some rush decision with this. The nice thing is right now that we are above, in front of the curve with this, with the EPA, and we've been very upfront to our to the citizens and to all the water users with this. So we'd like to continue that. And you're right, it's a very difficult thing, and sometimes it's hard to explain, and sometimes it's even difficult to imagine that you're talking such a small amount.
Well, and I misspoke.
Yeah.
Lake Powell, to fill it, is actually 26 million
Yeah.
acre-feet of water. Putting a 4-ounce beer into 26 million acre-feet.
Yes, it seems a little daunting at that, and I would agree.
John, I've looked at every major lab in the entire United States, and there's not a single one that can measure to 0.004. So I know the most sensitive is about 1.6 parts per trillion, and anything below that would just be considered non-detect. So that's really kind of what you're shooting for here.
That is correct.
Rather than this 4 orders of magnitude below that. And I think most of the people that I've talked to and consulted with are under the impression that the EPA is probably going to end up with a number that at least is within the sensitivity level of some of these labs.
Yeah.
So maybe somewhere between 2 and 6 parts per trillion rather than this extraordinarily undetectable low level.
And the way it looks from the presentations and some of the information that we're getting, it may be even up as high as 10. So
Possibility.
And that seems to be more realistic, and that's what we're actually shooting for. Obviously, it would be nice to be at a non-detect, but something at least close to the 4 and 6 parts.
Well, even though we're substantially below the EPA levels for arsenic, I still think that there's a legitimate justification to move that lower. So at least shooting for maybe 5 would be half of where the EPA says it's acceptable, I think, for the community at large. Reducing that number to a low level that will justify the cost investment, I think is something we want to continue to work for. I do have some questions about the scope and the cost of this proposal. You know, we're going to spend $5,200 just in meetings and workshops and pay them between $100 and $150 an hour to conduct a meeting and a workshop. I think you and your staff can probably conduct a meeting and a workshop for a much lower cost. When we look at adding some additional meetings and under the workshop category, it comes to a total of $7,600. That's a lot of money for a meeting and a workshop. I would object to the electrocoagulation and other possibilities since they aren't even defined and they don't even exist. So why we're spending $4,665 to evaluate a system or a media that doesn't even exist anymore is a complete waste of money. Then I would say that the cost estimate that's in here is something we would want to see, and that's only 3% of the total. And then we're going to spend $29,000 for a draft and a report. That's a lot of money. So if you add up all these different proposals, then I assume that it would take a long time to evaluate the results of the workshop and the meetings and all these other things. We're paying them $170 an hour to draft a report. You know, now we're in the realm of our legal representation over here. Although I think this proposal is certainly something that we want to pursue to be able to identify what the best remediation is, I think the scope of this report is far too large. We could, I would suggest we go back and have them sharpen their pencil. I think you could probably cut this down by 30,000 or 40,000 or more and still end up with a good report that you can work with. And quite frankly, I think we've got a lot of quality people in your department, and that's what we pay you to do. So every time it seems like we have a big challenge, we have to go out to some outside consultant and pay sky-high costs when a lot of this stuff can be done in-house. So if this has to be proposed exactly the way you're proposing it, I'm opposed to it. But I'd like to see it temporarily put on review and have you work with them and come back with something that is much more reasonable. Other than that, I don't have an opinion.
I have a comment.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I would like to ask John, in light of Mr. Mayor Good's comments, I mean, is Waterworks engineers, are they pretty much the only ones that are bidding on this or we're going to use? I mean, is there just a small category of people to choose from in this area?
Pretty much there is, but we have worked with them in the past, and we have a very good relationship with them, and their expertise in this is highly sought, so that's why we went ahead and chose those. But as to the mayor's comments with that, we could be more than happy to go through here, go with them, and reevaluate that. And I don't think that's out of the realm here.
Because it's helpful to know that they're a known entity.
Yes.
And there's a rapport between the two.
Yes, and we do have a good rapport with them, with the city as well. So.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised considering how much they're charging us. So I'd like to make a proposal that we move to postpone a decision on this proposal until the next council meeting and give the department a chance to work with the Waterworks and see if we can refine this to more an appropriate cost proposal.
Is that a motion, Mayor?
It is a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you, John. And
thank you.
again, I don't want to say that they aren't a great organization, but when you look at some of the details here, I just think it's far too high, and especially if they're going to evaluate electrocoagulation or other products that don't even exist. I have a hard time paying for that.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next item.
Approval of city contract number 2023-064 with Asphalt Paving and Supply, Inc. for the Granite Creek Corridor Master Plan Improvement Project.
Mr. Mayor, I need to recuse myself from this agenda item, and I also need to disclose the reason why my spouse has an ownership interest in Roosing Square, which borders this project. Thank you.
Understood. Mr. Goodman?
Yes.
Good to see you today.
Good to see you.
What do you have for us?
Thank you for saving the best for last. And that's not me, it's the project, right? I don't think anybody's happier than I am to present this today. It has been 4 years of hard work. Just for people who aren't familiar with this project, we started the master planning in 2018, and we enlisted the help of Natural Channel Design, and they were a huge help. We had a lot of public input. We put together a great master plan. The council approved it in 2020. And we hit some bumps along the way, 2020, a little bit of 2021 with funding, both internally here at the city and with grant funding, but the stars have aligned and it's come together. So as you heard, the bid amount is $3,003,266. I'm happy to say that is below the engineer's estimate and below the budget that we have for this project by about $12,000 or $13,000, but we'll take it as a win. The city received 3 bids, one from Asphalt Paving and Supply, which is the one before you, another from Mountain High Excavating, and a third from Fan Contracting. An award of the low bid to Asphalt Paving and Supply is what we recommend at this point. Proper notice was given several times in August, with the bid opening in September. Improvements will include access to the corridor itself, to the trail, to lighting under the bridges, to stormwater, and improvements in the creek to help the flow, to help with erosion, undercutting, and certain elements that Natural Channel Design and the master plan identified as potential problems. We're also hoping that this could help with limiting future flooding by having a strategic removal of some understory of trees that are within the creek itself. That'll include that will improve the creek's flow. I did want to mention that as part of this construction project, there is not contemplated or planned a large removal of trees. However, in the master plan, it identifies that we should strategically look at replacing elms and other non-natives over a long period of time, like 10 plus years, and strategically replant them with native species, to do so in a way that doesn't take away from the overstory and the riparian habitat and all those features that we love about the corridor. Work will begin in October and is scheduled to end in April. And you'll remember that this project is from Aubrey Street at the south up to Granite Creek Park. I also have another bit of good news. We found out late yesterday that we have been officially awarded $1 million in a grant from Land and Water Conservation Fund. And that is scheduled to come before you for approval October 11th, which will be right in line with the timing of this project. Other than that, we do have funding budgeted in the general fund, streets fund, a very generous donation from Jenkins Trust, and the bed tax. So we're ready to go. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. Tyler, you mentioned that there's a plan over a 10-year period to replace some of the non-native trees, and obviously that's not in the scope of this project, but how will that be funded and how will that work be conducted over a 10-year period? I mean, it's nice to hear it, but is there a plan, and how's that going to be executed over a 10-year period?
Great question. And there is not a plan on paper as of now, but my plan is to work with Joe Baines. I'm going to put him on the spot already, but we know how to do it. We have the details of how. It's just now a matter of scheduling that when. And we've even identified, Matt Colleen is here, he's been a huge help with identifying what trees are what. And it's basically bringing the pieces together, putting it on paper, doing it the right way so that we can both remove non-native and immediately replace them with native.
And just one follow-up question on the different topic. That $1 million grant that you talked about, will that then reduce the city's cost from the $3 million to $2 million?
It definitely.
As far as the general fund?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct. Yeah, the general fund has about $487,000 into this project.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's funded from grants and other
Fantastic.
funds.
Well, Councilman Moore, I agree, having an actual plan to move these into more of a native species is important. So I think we should ask them for a date certain time when they can come back and submit the plan to us, so we know it'll be in the minutes, and we can expect that plan will actually be implemented.
I like that, Mayor, and I know that Matt's very knowledgeable, and I'd also like to be involved. If I know I'm not maybe an expert, but I have a lot of expertise in plants, and I'd love to be involved in that decision-making process as far as what plants we would reintroduce in a native plant, such as Arizona ash or Arizona walnut or maybe sycamore and other things that would be consistent with what would grow here naturally compared to Siberian elm, which obviously isn't natural.
Councilwoman Cantelmi.
Yes, I just wanted to say that this is a great project, and I'll be excited to see it in the downtown area. One more bonus for all of our residents and our tourists. In that plan, though, I'm going to question, is there going to be some stipulation to what size we get? I mean, I'm hoping that they don't provide a 5-gallon twig. I won't be around to see it grow. So can we stipulate the size of box that we purchase? I mean, there's, if we can afford a 36, and will there be ongoing funds to be able to afford the larger trees? Because if you take down some of the shade, it'll take many years for those new little saplings to grow up there.
Correct, which is why we need to come back with a specific plan for the tree removal and replanting. However, the master plan does detail a strategic removal so that you're not taking away the overstory, right? I mentioned the riparian habitat. But we can easily do that as staff. We can get together, come back to council with that plan to be implemented starting upon completion of this project and going forward for 10 plus years, most likely.
Yeah, because that'll have to be a long, ongoing plan. So do you already have everything mapped that's in that creek area?
We do.
Oh, you do? Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilman Shishka.
Thank you, Mayor. Tyler, having Asphalt Paving and Supply get this contract kind of makes people vision that we're paving paradise and maybe putting up a parking lot. But what does it really look like with Asphalt Paving and Supply being the head contractor in this situation?
Well, the work will be the same. It's very nimble. This is not a road project. This is not a mass project that we see with streets or other development. This is very nimble, smaller equipment coming in to help shape the trail, clean out under the bridges, the access points. There's going to be a new ADA access point that will be constructed, some retaining walls. So it's not going to be huge crews, huge equipment. It'll be more of a nimble work.
So you're not paving the trail?
We are not paving the trail. It will stay a natural surface, but it will be improved upon based on what we have today, right? So there will be the compacting, the shaping, all those things will be a part of it.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to make sure that the community has an opportunity to see the design work and the planting plans so that we don't run into the same problem we had with some of the criticisms about restoring the slopes of Granite Creek.
Miller Creek.
Miller Creek. I think that's important for the community, especially after some of the comments that we received about that, so they can be aware of what's being done, how it's being done, what the phases are, and I think we'll end up with a lot more community-supported project.
And Mayor, we could plan to bring that to a study session and then at a future date bring it to a voting session for approval if approval is necessary at that point. But depending on funding, I suppose it could be. So
Very good. Do we have any public comment?
We do. Edward Bowe.
Yes, most of you know who I am. From one aspect of my service to the community or another. I was the area director for the Republican Party in Area 1, 14 precincts, and did that for several years and produced a very good result for the Republican Party. I was the president of the Citizens Tax Committee after arriving in this city and opposed the jail and worked on various tax concepts and ideas, supported Karen Fan and her work. In addition to that, I was also the president of the Industrial Development Authority, which was submarined here on the city council. My activity was to revive the Industrial Development Authority, and it was undercut by the mayor and one of the councilmen, to my great happiness that both of those people are no longer serving on the city council. What I proposed in April to this group was that I would be the project manager for this project, a community development project, as opposed to a third-party contract. The idea behind that was to get civilians to work on clearing clearing all of the existing flora on the both banks of the creek. And then we had a civil engineer who volunteered to work with me on all of the work with public works people and to oversee this. He volunteered his time. He's got a long history, moved from Scottsdale. Rick is going to be living in Prescott Lakes, and he would be a civil engineer to work with public works. We contacted Clear Creek to take care of all the tree issues. Anything under 4 inches would be removed, and that would have been throughout the entire length of the facility. So you start with 2 banks. One bank would be controlled by natural regrowth. The other bank would be controlled by landscape architects who would be given sections of the creek to redevelop in their concept of beautification of the creek bed. The basic creek would be widened to 10 feet. There would be 3 paths along the way. They would be developed. They would not be natural grade. They would be concrete for pedestrians, people with walkers, people with women with strollers. There would be a dividing bench so people could sit and admire the work of the landscape architects. Then the next path would be for runners, joggers, bicyclists, they call them e-bikes now.
Councilman Moore, you had a question.
I do. Ed, I appreciate your presentation and your vision, but I'm just concerned that as I look at the material that was presented as council members in the packet, there was obviously an RFP from the city to conduct this work. Why didn't you submit an RFP?
I submit? No, RFPs are submitted by the city to the contract.
Why didn't you submit a proposal to meet?
I never saw any paperwork or any, and I contacted Tyler about I sent him the paperwork you've all received. First, I went to the head of CWAG and the president of CWAG. I went to Prescott Creeks to get their commentary. I went to 3 former councilmen, Lamerson, Kuknio, and Arnold, to get their opinions about my presentation. I went to Grant Quesada to get commentary on my project. I got not a single negative, and the 2 previous mayors, not a single negative comment from anyone, and praise from some of them. So my concept is an ongoing project, a community development project, where the landscapers are given recognition for their work. There's a plaque on the pedestrian walkways where you can see who the contractor is, what he's done, his planting scheme, and this would be ongoing. The labor would be provided for free. The city would only pay for the flora.
I think my question, to shorten your answer, because the city went through a process requesting people to respond to this project, and the city didn't receive anything from you recommending your particular project, so it wasn't considered as one of the 3 proposals.
Well, they did receive it in August, and I didn't get a response, and I sent it to Tyler. He was apparently appointed as the point person for that. Be happy to meet with the city on that issue. There's no rush on this. This project and the condition of this stream is intolerable. It's been like that for years, and it needs to be done, and it needs to be beautified. And this concept of using an asphalt contractor whose parent company is in Fargo, North Dakota, to do this work, I don't plan 1 inch of asphalt in my project. It's all.
And they don't either, as you listen to Tyler's presentation. There was no plan for asphalt in this project, obviously.
Yeah, we're right. So about 10 to 15% of all the money you're going to spend is going to be gone as profit for this corporation. And ours is a community service project, and there's no
Oh, thank you for
profit
your
overhead.
comments. Your time's up.
Okay.
All right, any other comments or concerns? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve contract number 2023-064.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 6-0.
All right, this concludes our voting session today, and I'll echo the words of General MacArthur after he concluded the signing ceremony of the end of World War II. These proceedings are closed.